Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo is on another level right now. We are talking about generational levels of peak shonen. Now, ironically enough, I was too sick to record last week, so this time we have 2 chapters to get into. The cover page of chapter 14, titled An Older Brother's Duty, features Cross looking down at the stone his father was holding when he died, which is presumably what he reached for instead of the visible sword that Maru shot him over. Behind him are flames and Yuka's burning gaze. Now, this very serious chapter begins with a mood-lightening story of Maru learning the term speedrunning. The Rumelians wanted to make Dabura an outfit for the dinner party, so Maru went to get his measurements. But Dabura didn't want to wander around the ship too much, so he told them to just guess, and he was thrown off by Maru's excitement after such a successful speedrun. Later, Maru read an old story about a guy getting a bunch of manju after telling his friends that he's afraid of the dessert. So the alien decided to do the same thing with his friends. When he asked them what they're afraid of, Tsurugi claimed to be fearless, although Yuka pointed out that he's afraid of Miyaguni, the blonde-haired grade 1 sorcerer. While personally, Yuka hates roaches. Maru tried to play it cool while telling them that he's afraid of manju. To that, Yuka offered him some hot tea, which put him on the receiving end of a speedrun, since that's how the old story actually ends. And that, my friends, is pretty much all the sunshine we're going to be getting out of these chapters. At headquarters, Mino asked Miyaguni if she was really going to make Yuka go through with confronting Dabura, and she claimed that it's the only card that they can play, along with the fact that Yuka's told Mino about her illness by now. The assistant knew as much, but was still conflicted. Miyaguni sighed when she saw his expression. Facing Dabura with the weaponry at their disposal would be pointless. There would be many needless deaths, and their security treaty with the United States wouldn't even apply to the use of what they've stationed in Japan. Yuka was in the bathroom washing her face. Something like tears fell as she stared at her own reflection. Mino asked if they couldn't just use nuclear weaponry from another country. Miyaguni admitted that no country wants to be known for being the ones to drop nukes on Japan yet again. Besides, Japan is now a latent nuclear power itself. Mino knew she meant that although they uphold non-nuclear principles publicly, they still have the means to make their own. As such, the United Nations expected them to do so themselves if they're so inclined. Miyaguni ruefully accepted that they're not exactly popular as far as worldly powers go, which parallels the strife and lack of assistance that the Rumelians faced on their home planet. With the backdrop of flames, Maru questioned how long it's been since talking to Cross became so difficult for him. We flash back to their childhood in the ruins of their home. Cross had given him something, and Maru was confused. His brother explained that his dad was holding it until the very end, and said that it's Mool. Maru stared at the Rololuca sensitive resource that the Deskunte had fought their people over. His gaze became cold. His father hadn't left them any Mool. It was actually just a regular old rock. Maru shattered it on the ground. Cross was distraught as an enraged Maru stomped it to bits. He scorned their father for dying over something so foolish and losing sight of his responsibilities as a Rumelian warrior. Maru told his crying twin to just forget about their dad. In actuality, he didn't want Cross to know that it was just a normal rock, so he lied. But thinking back, maybe those were his honest feelings. He may have truly begrudged his father's sense of priorities. Then there was the day Dura died. He remembered Cross's desperate plea for their mentor to just run away with them. He remembered Dabura's apology, the fact that he didn't want to ruin Dura's face. Maru reflected on just how kind the two of them were. While he was subdued, Cross called out to him. His brother was worried and claimed that Maru was acting strangely. Maru turned to him with a disbelieving look. To him, they were the ones who were strange. Run away with them? To Maru, Dura needed to fulfill his duties as a Rumelian warrior. He needed to fight. Didn't want to harm his face? Maru considered anything less than the use of his full power to be an insult. He had to wonder if he was the only one who was compelled by the responsibilities of a warrior. Don't let the smiles and silliness fool you. This is Alien King Von. Really, Maru and his father are very similar, stubborn and set in their own ways. Their father's obsession with Mool resulted in his death, while Maru's obsession with being a warrior always hurt his brother. Holding himself, Maru just wanted a chance to talk to Cross one more time. That way he could apologize for everything. Sitting on an abandoned building in Tokyo, he called out his brother's name. Tsurugi was also in Tokyo, as he considered an inconsistency with the Samurian story. Their social structure was hardly what you would expect from a modern nation. With how similar they are to Earthlings, them being aliens wasn't enough to explain the discrepancy. In that case, he wondered if the Deskunte run some sort of centralized government where Rumelians are oppressed. But even if that were to be the case, it wouldn't explain the biggest question. How did they create their spaceship? Even if it's powered by cursed energy, compared to their primitive sensibilities, carrying 50,000 people across space is beyond advanced. And even if their techniques could make it possible, there's no way they would have enough time, especially considering how long it took them to build their canal. Tsurugi was sure that something strange and unexpected must have bailed them out. And having reached his destination, Tsurugi was sure. He called out to Maru, certain that he's the one responsible for their interstellar voyage. It is January 14th, 2087. The day of the duel is here. And there was no warmth in the look Tsurugi gave Maru. The Rumelian warrior didn't even turn. Tsurugi pointed out that Naunax is made from Mool, a resource that responds to cursed energy and cursed techniques. He's sure the Samurians made it to Earth thanks to the techniques of a single sorcerer. Maru admitted that it wouldn't have been possible with typical Mool, but the Mool Dabura left them was especially pure. After all, it was in an area that not even the Deskunte could get to. With cold eyes, he added that it wasn't just him, that it was a technique he shares with his brother. Tsurugi had been looking all over for him, but didn't expect to actually find Maru. Maru claimed that he wanted to properly talk to Tsurugi one last time, which is to say, he found him. Tsurugi asks if the reason he can do so, and they can communicate in Japanese in the first place, is because of Maru and Cross's curse technique. Still not facing him, Maru confirmed it. Tsurugi called out to him. With a callous expression, he asked his former friend if the Samurians can't just leave their planet. According to Maru, they can't, not after learning about the planet's Kalyans. Tsurugi was sure that Maru knew about the duel set between Yuka and Dabura. Maru simply urged the Earthlings to give up, since victory against Dabura is impossible, that the result would be the same either way. But Tsurugi wasn't so sure about that, which is what he's hung up on. We're shown an airport where a specific plane is being boarded. Tsurugi knows his sister is sick, and sadly, the doctor's previous assessment was a bit too generous. Yuka is deteriorating fast. Tsurugi hates himself for not realizing sooner, but that's not the focus right now. He told Maru that when their backs are against the wall, Earthling sorcerers use binding vows as a last resort. But even with a boost to cursed energy and techniques, Maru still saw no chance of her beating Dabura. Yuka was accompanied by Mino as they approached the aircraft. Since her diagnosis, Yuka has been looking for something to spend her life on, and with her impending death, she decided to die for the sake of someone else. Before the Kalyan incident, the plan was to unite their people. Now, she has to save humanity. Even so, Tsurugi wanted to stop her from fighting in the duel. He doesn't believe that today is the day that his sister should die, that if she only has 3 months left, then he wants her to live out those 3 months. Even if it's just one more week, or she passes away tomorrow, his sentiment would remain the same. Really, it's all he can do. With Honoyagi raised, he supposed that this is what it means to be an older brother, something he's sure Maru can understand. So again, he asked Maru to take the rest of his people and leave Earth. Maru still had yet to turn. He replied that 50,000 of their people are aboard their ship, and that figure includes women and children. the very people who, as a warrior, he is sworn to protect until his dying breath. Even pushing their curse technique to the limit, it took them nearly 2 years to arrive on Earth, a place where they could put down roots, freely practice their religion, and be rid of tyranny and invasion. Before reaching this place, their entire population lived in a constant state of fear. Fear that they'd simply drift in the vacuum of space forever. Maru leapt down as he accepted that there is no place left for them on their home planet, and no guarantee that they'll find somewhere else. When Maru finally faced Tsurugi, it was to apologize and refuse to leave. He revealed his third eye. Tsurugi sure had a lot to say about Yuka, but what about the blatant desecration of their religion? With building fury, he grabbed hold of his sword. What about his brother, Cross? Tsurugi apologized for his wording as sparks flew from the unsheathing of his blade. Flaming more than ever, he corrected himself to tell the alien interloper to get the hell off his planet. Yuka's plane flew over their exchange as Maru refused again. With a mule sword poised to strike, he declared his obligation as a Rumelian warrior. Peak, 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 peak. But for as perfect as this chapter may be, this is just the appetizer. Modulo was on the cover of the magazine yet again, with Yuka, Maru, and Tsurugi ready for a fight, with Dabura behind them all. The color page of chapter 15, titled The Forbidden Technique Unleashed, does something similar, with Maru and Tsurugi up front, the headliners Dabura and Yuka behind them, and a plane racing across the sky. Yuka's vision was blurring. It was a struggle for her to even stand. Mino called out to her from behind. He offered her a wheelchair, one fashioned with futuristic sensibilities. Turning back, she thanked Mino with a faint smile. As they flew, Yuka decided that if she ends up being reborn, then she'd like to be the older sister for a change. Thanks to 16 years of experience, she knew exactly what a younger sibling would want. Unlike Tsurugi, she'd always go easy on them. Unlike Tsurugi, she'd be generous and always share her snacks. Unlike Tsurugi, she wouldn't keep all the cheat codes to herself, and she'd be sure to help them with their homework. Not that Tsurugi was ever on her level when it came to that though. Beyond fatigued, Yuka couldn't help herself from smiling. Tsurugi sure was bad at being a big brother. When her head suddenly sagged, Mino called out to her. In turn, she called out to Tsurugi. Mino waited for her to continue, wondering what she had to say about Tsurugi. Yuka looked up. She could barely see the person in front of her. Believing him to be Tsurugi, she flashed a smile and reminded him that she told him not to come. Yuka honestly wasn't trying to look tough. She just didn't want her brother to see her like this. Mino froze. Yuka teased him for being the kind of guy who'd think telling a girl she looks better without makeup would be positive. Mino had to fight back tears. Yuka continued to say that he doesn't understand how girls feel at all, not even his little sister. It was painful to see that she was already so far gone. Mino held her hand and apologized. Crying, all he could do was apologize. It made Yuka remember Tsurugi holding her hand when they were small. He urged her not to cry, claiming that it wasn't a big deal. Yuka was sobbing because her friend was possessed by a vengeful spirit that couldn't be graded. She wanted to help them. She thought that she could do it herself, but she was wrong, and Tsurugi had gotten hurt saving her. And the details here are brilliant because this moment is something of a fusion between Yuta's childhood and Maki's. Looking back, Yuka probably wouldn't have died without him, but her friend would have. Yet he never blamed her. She could only depend on his kindness. Meanwhile, deeper in Tokyo, there was a gathering of crows. Surrounded by the birds, Dabura asked the stranger before him if they're meant to be his opponent. The stranger denied this and claimed to simply be an old man. He had come to greet Dabura on behalf of Earth sorcerers ahead of the duel. As incredibly, this is Wiwi, master of the new shadow style. With a smile, He wanted to express his gratitude to the Sorceress King from another planet. Dabura questioned his words. Wee reminisced over the calamitous power of Sukuna that shook their world almost 70 years ago, as the decimation wrought by that very conflict could still be seen. According to Wee, what followed was an ordinary yet flimsy state of peace. And eventually, everyone seemed to forget. The Shrouded Master presented a trio of grandchildren, that which was once known as true strength. The young possessed no frame of reference for the pinnacle of mortal violence. Dabura was giving them a chance to see the unfettered horror of the curses to which humanity might spawn. Unmoved, Dabura apologized. He can't show them anything without an opponent, and even then, they need to be strong enough for it not to be over in an instant. Even so, Wee was sure that Dabura would be satisfied, and certain that the alien's loneliness would be dealt with, as the plane finally reached its destination. Lights flared to life, and the plane's ramp opened up. Yuka's wheelchair moved into position. Mino was a crying mess. Yuka smiled at him. She decided that if she gets to be reborn, then she'd like to be a little sister again. Then she was released. Yuka entered freefall as the wheelchair broke apart. She thought about who she'd want her older brother to be, and could only think of Tsurugi. She closed her eyes amidst the tears. Dabura was focused. Divine dogs and toads preceded her arrival with their heads skywards, as if by holy proclamation. Yuka's only words for Dabura were an apology. Then she locked in, and you already know what's going down. She used the downward momentum of her fall to slip into the behemoth's shadow before it could land. The 8-handled sword, Mahoraga, has descended. The Divine General has entered yet another era of sorcery and become aware of danger just as quickly. Dabura used his curse technique to unleash a volley of searing beams of light from the heavens above. The whole area was lit up in an instant. He stood atop a pillar of them as Mahoraga suffered impalement from all directions. Dabura's curse technique was revealed. Redacted and light. Redacted is murderous intent given form. A concept indescribable to Earthling sorcerers that has been passed down through the Deskunte tribe, making its possession something like the Six Eyes. But Mahoraga's wheel began to twitch as a Shikigami bit through the pillar of light in its mouth, as for the very first time, at least in recorded history, Mahoraga has begun adapting to an alien curse technique. Yet again, peak. This is unbelievable. We are witnessing a master at work. Gege is in his bag. Frankly, he's better than ever. And if you enjoy Modulo even more than the main story, you have every right to, because I am right there with you. I just got my energy back, and I could hardly wait to put it all into this, so hopefully you feel the same way. If you make it to January 14, 2087, I hope you remember this. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching, and have an awesome day. I love you.